Hello and welcome to a Gair Sport review of the 2019 Rugby World Cup in Japan. I'm here with 4 delightful guests who are all here to have their say on the World Cup. So without further ado, let's introduce you to today's guests.
My name's Tom Henry.
I'm John Jones.
I'm Jack Vavasour.
I'm Ben Lovell-Smith.
So now we'll get underway with the team of the tournament. This is an ultimate 15 based on the players who played the best at the Rugby World Cup. So we'll start at position number 1. Tom, who have you got at 1?
I've got the Beast, Tari. I think quite a few of us got that.
Yeah, I got John.
I've gone for the Beast as well. I just don't think England in the final could deal with his brute force and 34 years old, 117 test appearances. It was a perfect send off him to win.
Yeah, that's the key though for that one, isn't it? Because the final was just they won out the scrum, they destroyed. It was unfortunate that obviously England had Dan Cole on and he wasn't up to it, but 2 experienced props, and yes, the South African props just came out on top completely with that, and that's why he deserves it.
Yeah, I have to agree, it was a bit of a throwback to the 2009 Lions tour. I haven't seen him dominate the scrum like that since then.
I don't think anyone else really gets close to that one. I mean,
No.
Mako, but he came in late, and the scrum and the final was pretty poor. So
Yeah.
And same with Joe Marler, it's just then 50-50, you can't really.
I think the way in which they won the World Cup as well, the scrummaging, just dominating that final against England, it wasn't nice to see for England fans, but
I mean, he probably only played 40 minutes of the final when he's in our team.
Yeah, so that just shows how important he was in
Exactly.
that game. So he goes in at 1. At hooker, who have we got, Ben?
Bongi Mbonambi.
Another South African player?
Yes, definitely. I think to keep Malcolm Marks out of the team for most of the tournament, it just says a lot about him. Scoring a lot of tries from the mauls. He's right up there in the try scoring stats. Not much more about that. He's just a strong ball carrier, solid. I think also he's probably in the team because his lineouts are a bit more reliable, and obviously the South African lineout dominated throughout the tournament.
Yeah, you mentioned Marks, and I think that's kind of key to it in the sense that Marks was nominated for World Player of the Year last year, and so to go from being one of the best players to then being overtaken, it's just that's real dominance and a brave decision from Rassie Erasmus as well.
Yeah. John, I think I've got down here that you disagree with that slightly.
Well, I think it's a good call, but I've gone for Shota Hori from Japan. I think he's just a true all-round forward, dynamic and powerful with his play. And for a hooker, his passing and carries and tackling stats are all really high, and he helped to set up one of the tries of the tournament against Scotland as well.
Yeah, of course, it's hard to forget that, isn't it? Probably one of the matches of the tournament as well. I think for Mbanabi's overall importance to that forward pack for South Africa, he goes in alongside the Beast because it was just immense between the 2 of them and the rest of the pack as well. So we'll quickly move on to number 3. I've got down here Kyle Sinclair. Does anyone have any other options?
I think he was incredible. He's finally come into his own. I think with that Lions tour 2 years ago, he was a bit hot-headed, but now he's definitely scored that number 3 place for England. He's one of the world's best now.
It was just that final, isn't it? A bit unfortunate the way in which he finished his tournament.
Heartbreaking, I think is the word. Seeing him go down when he could have made such an impact, to then see England destroyed in the scrums, an area of the game where he's really come on in the last 2 years, as you said. It's a real disappointment.
I think it's
that's the nature of sport.
His try against the Aussies was probably the best bit of his tournament. I mean, the way he runs those lines off Farrell and Ford is probably one of the best bits of his game.
That's why it's so important to England, is he offers that other option.
Yeah.
He brings a dynamism to England's game that Dan Cole can't, and that's why he starts the game, is for that impact.
Well, they showed in the final how much they missed him, really, didn't they, when he came off. Kyle Sinclair's a shoe-in, really. 3. Move on to second rows at number 4. I think it's quite hard to argue with Mario Tojic, really. Just like in the Six Nations, he was superb again.
He never has a bad game, that kid. He's just immense.
I think he had about 13 turnovers in the whole tournament, and I think the next best was probably about 7th. I think that's where I read. That just shows that he's just dominant. He turns up the big occasions. Definitely in there.
It's just another fantastic all-round player, the line out and the breakdown. He's been huge for England, just been a cut above the rest, really.
And I think again, with you say he never has a bad game, and he obviously burst onto the scene as this huge prospect. And then when England went through that dip in form, I feel he almost became a penalty machine at points. Like, and you see that when towards South Africa, when De Klerk, he dives in and De Klerk then obviously has that easy try, and now he's back to being the level-headed player we all know. He's hungry, he wants to be there, and his determination is ridiculous. Yeah.
And to think he's only 24, I think in the next World Cup he'll be 28 in his prime, and if it's not his prime now, then
it's scary to think where he gets to,
scary.
isn't it? Yeah, so he's quite an easy option really. Moving on to 5, I think any Welshman watching this would scream Alan Wynne-Jones. But John, I have down here that although you have allegiances to Wales, you have someone else in mind.
Well, Alan Wynne's the obvious choice, but I've gone for James Moore from Japan. In the pool stages, he was immense for the hosts. I mean, he had incredible fitness levels, and against Ireland, it was one of the best individual performances of the World Cup for me. 23 tackles, didn't miss any of them, and made 11 tackles as well.
I just think Alan Wynne dragged the Welsh to that semi. He's just a talisman now, and he knows it as well. Like, they just need him to stay on. I think.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught the pre-match interview with him before the semi-final. He was asked about whether he'd be at the next tournament or not, and you could see like tears were just about to come from his eyes. So it just shows how important representing Wales is to him, and that obviously shows in the pitch as well. Do you two have any other suggestions?
Well, I had Expert in there, and I don't think that he should be in there based on the whole tournament, but again, it's another big call based on the final. England's line-out, which had been so solid the whole tournament, was destroyed, and I think Expeth was key in that. He turned over one of England's key line-outs right at the start of the game, and I think that was the beginning of England's frustration.
Kind of set the tone, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely set the tone, and he's just such a big presence in that team that I think he was vital to South Africa winning the whole tournament.
Jack?
No,
Yeah, so we'll go with Alan Wynne-Jones. I think Expeth played well and so did Moore, but yeah, Tom, like you said, the way in which Alan Wynne just dragged Wales to that semi-final, the amount of injuries they had as well, they might have not got there without Alan Wynne-Jones, so he goes in at 5. Moving on to blindside, I've got down Tom Curry. I think he was the best young player at the tournament. Again, showed how brilliant he is. Coming off the Six Nations as well earlier this year. Does anyone else have any objections to that?
I thought Wainwright was outstanding through the whole tournament. Who would have said that he would have been one of the standout players in the whole tournament a year ago? Just fantastic.
I do rate Wainwright, but I don't know if you can say in the same breath as Ardie Savea and Sam Underhill and all these, but I don't think he's quite up there yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Wainwright's rise to playing at the level he is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But then you've got to realise that they are playing on a whole other plane, and whilst you would have him in around these teams and in that kind of vein, like he's then got to step up another level, which with the rate he's going, he definitely will be playing there in a year or so. Yeah.
I think it's a good thing that Wainwright was on the pitch against France, though. Otherwise, maybe Wales wouldn't have got through to the.
I love how he didn't make any fuss as well. He just kind of held his hands up like that and thought, what has happened here?
Yeah.
Which is what everyone else thought as well. But I get Wainwright is 22, isn't he? He wasn't really tipped to play.
I think he only started playing rugby when he was 16 or
Yeah,
something.
As soon as he took it up,
I think one player we've
Cardiff,
forgotten a lot about, and even in our player of the tournament, he's now World Player of the Year, is Steph Toy. I mean, he was just incredible at the line out and his rucking and everything. He's just so good around all parts of the field. I think, forget about him, he's not even in my team.
But he's a talisman for South Africa.
Yeah.
They bring off Khaleesi, their captain, to leave the toy on the field.
Yeah.
I think that says it all.
I think we'll go with Tom Curry. I think he was superb, just like he was in the Six Nations, and like Itoje, he's got many years ahead of him, so it'll be scary to see how far they do progress. Moving on to open side then, who have we got down?
Sam Underhill. I think he's just, again, it's the same idea as Tom Curry. They work brilliantly together, and the fact that the last couple of, before Eddie Jones, every English fan was complaining, we've got no sevens, we've got no open sides. You saw the Pocock-Hooper combination, and so then for the first two years or so we had Haskell and Robshaw. Now we've got Curry and Underhill, and for the last 2 years every fan has been there going, we want them both to be fit at the same time. We saw Underhill against New Zealand in November, destroyed the whole game, did Bowden Barrett, and now to see them both play together it's just phenomenal. Like, he always hits that tackle and they always go backwards, and yeah, he's just, again, I think he's playing on a different plane to really many other flankers at this level, and yeah, hopefully they can keep up and both stay fit.
I think that partnership with Curry and Underhill just symbolises England's like dynamism now. Like, that's their main part of it, their power game and how quick they are around the ruck and their tackling. It's just, that symbolises that.
But also to keep a player like Mark Wilson out, who his whole international career, obviously as brief as it's been, has been so good, just again symbolises how
Wilson's played well as well when he came on. He's made an impact. But yeah, I think Underhill's very hard to argue with, isn't he? Yeah. So he goes in at 7. Moving on to 8, John, who have you got in?
I've gone for probably another controversial choice, but I've gone for Josh Navidi. Shame that he got injured, but I think Wales showed in their match against South Africa how important he is to the team, especially in defence. They just couldn't deal with South Africa's. I mean, it was obviously the best, like, I'd say, attacking force and like strongest attack.
Yeah, I think coming in for Faletau as well, he's obviously injured. It's such a big loss, but he really did show, especially in that Australia match as well, winning the group stage.
Just such a powerful carrier, so important at the breakdown as well. Yeah. So yeah, he's my choice at 8.
Anyone else?
Vermeulen for me. Like I said in the player tour, I just think he's so good, so strong in his carry, and he just led from the front in that final. I mean, he deserves a spot.
He showed it in the semi-finals as well against Wales. It was a shame really that Navidi and him couldn't really come to blows, but I think Vermeulen, he's just an animal, and he really did impose himself on that Welsh pack in the semis and England in the finals.
I think it was definitely important in covering the backfield. He dropped back and he takes so many of the high balls, just taking the pressure off of Villiers who hasn't been in great form this World Cup, and the two wingers whose international careers haven't actually been that long. They haven't been playing international for that long.
Yeah. Jack, anyone else?
Well, I put down Sever, but he again was obviously playing at flanker, but then quite a few games you could see him slot in at 8 for the scrums, and again I think he's one of those modern players who offers so much more, and it's hard to argue with Vermeulen as well, but I think the overall contribution to the All Blacks and what you could consider a disappointing All Black side is that everyone is saying Sever. Sam Cane has been there, the follow-up to Richie McCaw, he's the one wearing the 6 shirt, and Sever is there taking the 7, and I think he can, obviously he's playing a lot at 8 as well, and I think I'll put him in there just...
I think Sever was the best Kiwi at the tournament. I was the best player. I think in that English game when they got absolutely battered, I think he was the best player.
Yeah, I think for Vermeulen's contribution in the semi and final when it really mattered, I don't think before the semi-final anybody really considered South Africa to win the tournament, but when they got there, he was one of, probably 7 or 8 players that really stood up for South Africa and really showed their class. So we've come to a general consensus at scrum half that Faf de Klerk was our outstanding choice. He was really superb at 9. I don't think anyone comes close to him really. He was just so superb against Wales. His kicking game was great in England as well in the final. He was just great. So it was a pretty easy decision at 9. So we'll move on to fly half, which I think is a more hotly contested position. I think we've all got pretty much different players down. My argument would be for Hendrik Pollard, who's top point scorer at the tournament. Who else have we got?
I've picked George Ford. I think he's been in the form of his life. I think he's starting to get respect from a lot of other nations now. I think his quality, his best attribute is how he plays the ball on the line. His kicking game is also really good. He was quite poor in the final, but as was every other Englishman on that pitch. But I think the game he played against the Kiwis was probably the best game he's played.
I think the key with Ford is, for years everyone's been speaking about how great Farrell is.
Yeah.
And then when Ford's not there, Farrell obviously is still sometimes amazing, but regularly when Ford is there, they both play amazingly, and then I think he's almost shifted to the side thinking, he's actually not necessarily like as important as people realise. I remember the Scotland game that England lost. Farrell looked lost when Ford went off. That was 2 years ago, and I think he's very underrated, and that was shown in this tournament, like you say, against the All Blacks. It's his like delayed pass, his knowledge of just when to throw the pass and when to like, actually there's going to be a gap, and he's a very selfless player in that sense.
It's such an argument between Pollard and Ford. They're two completely different players.
Yeah.
Pollard's a big boy, he loves to carry as well, and his kicking game is really good off the tee.
And Pollard statistically, with obviously, I think he ended up top point scorer for the tournament. It's difficult to argue with, but it depends whether you just go on points or whether their actual all-round game of how they played.
Yeah.
I think in that sense, Ford really does take it.
Yeah, I think we'll go with Pollard because he was just the amount of points he did accumulate, and especially against Wales as well, when it really mattered. You want a good, reliable kicker. So we'll go with Pollard. I do take your point that Ford was really good, and his partnership with Farrell really has come to the fore. But Pollard, just sheer fact that he's accumulated so many points, he goes in at 10. 11, who have we got?
Josh Adams, I've gone for top try scorer, probably Wales' best player. Do you agree, John?
Yeah, I do. I think Johnny May hardly put a foot wrong for England, but I mean, Josh Adams just showed himself to be a world-class finisher, top try scorer at the tournament, 7 tries, made 18 clean breaks, beat 16 defenders over the tournament as well, and I think Wales just came to rely on him massively, and he was a really key player for them.
Do either of you disagree with that?
No.
No, I did too.
I think, like we say, Johnny May didn't put a foot wrong, but sadly he was a bit off the pace. Yeah, Adams took those tries and really changed Wales' tournament.
Yeah, for sure. It was just really clinical, wasn't it? So that's pretty straightforward. We'll move on to 12 now. Inside centre, I've gone. For me, it's a toss-up between Farrell and Diolande. I think Diolande's physicality, just what he brought to that South African team, similar to Vermeulen really at 8, he just really shone, and that physicality is just superb.
I think all the focus was on South Africa's physicality in the pack, but outside that, Diolande was just a beast.
Diolande epitomises South African game play.
Yeah.
This big boy who loves playing on the game line right in front of their faces. I think, as much as I love Farrell, I think Farrell didn't have the biggest standout tournament, he didn't have a standout game.
Yeah.
We know we can all play like the best half in the world, or centre in the world, but I think Diolande just edges it.
Yeah.
I think Diolande, like you say, we're doing it on. We're thinking about how important their play is, and that try he got them through to the final. But again, in that sense, I put Tuolangi. Obviously, played some outside, some inside. But I think when he's fit, he is in any team in the world. I think you saw it in again the All Blacks game where he got that early try, and he's so important to inspiring a team forward and getting those important places. Like with Diolande, it's the same kind of argument. But yeah, for that semi-final, I probably would that try, the importance of it, and just the final as well. Diolande, epitomised South Africa's play.
Yeah, he's superb. I think he really is a standout player at 12. 13 then, if you're bearing in mind who you're playing at 12. Ben, who have you gone for?
I'm for Timothy Lafayette.
Yeah.
A little bit left of field.
Yeah.
Well, firstly for his offload in the very first game. If you want to launch a tournament off, it's your home tournament, throwing an offload at the back to send, I can't forget who the winger was, but that was just outstanding, and kind of epitomised Japan's game and Japan's tournament, that they were a breath of fresh air for the whole of rugby, and he was central in that through the whole tournament.
Yeah, I think Japan, you can't really overstate Japan's importance to the tournament, can you? The way they performed, it's great having a lesser rugby nation host it, but for them to really perform as well, it was great, and he was central to that.
I think outside centre's a tough one to argue who was the best, but I think you're picking out a pretty, not bad bunch, but a pretty average bunch.
I struggled with my outside centre.
I think the fact that Semi Radradra has been named in most pundits, when you read other, and he obviously Fiji had a poor tournament. He obviously was very important, but I thought Jack Goodhue shouldn't go amiss. He's so important to that All Black side, and again, I thought that in that England game, watching it, obviously it's difficult when a team is doing badly to know exactly who's, but he was always on the chase, he kept his head up, he kept fighting, and actually as someone who in other games is so clinical and so important, you cannot underestimate that kind of keeping the head up when your team is down. And I think actually his whole tournament, he's a safe player who does the right things, to then kind of keep that going when you're down as well. I just think, I think he had a really good tournament.
And of
in
course,
that
if you
sense.
consider the players that he's keeping out there.
Yeah, like Ryan Crotty,
Sonny Bill.
exactly.
His haircut though.
It's
I think Reece has modelled his moustache on him.
Yeah. Redrada you mentioned there. John, any
Yeah,
case
I
of
went for him as well. Just had to find a way to get him into the team. I agree with you. I think while Fiji did have a poor tournament by their standards, I think Redrada's performance against Wales, I mean, sticks out for me. A fine individual performance and another key player for them.
I think in a bit of, no disrespect, but a bit of a lesser team as well, it reminds me a bit of Parise playing for Italy. It's that sort of, that quality really shows when you're in a bit of a lesser team.
Definitely.
And to be able to carry them through a few games and very nearly beat Australia as well.
Yeah.
I thought he was excellent. Tom, any argument with that?
No, I agree.
So we'll go with Redrada purely because we've already got players in who have won tournaments, but we've also got someone here who shone in a bit of a lesser team, and I think I think he'd get into most teams really. Like you said as well, there wasn't much choice outside centre. So we'll move on to 14 now. I've got Matsushima down. I thought he was an excellent player for Japan. Has anyone got any objections?
Yeah, I've gone with obviously Matsushima scored again and a shed load of tries, but I think Kolbe, again, his importance, and it's for me Kolbe is quite an important player on a wider scene of he's not a big guy, he's not in such a South African team where you've mentioned they're so focused on their big players. He's this guy, I can't remember how tall he is, but about 5 foot whatever, and yet he's there darting in between these massive blokes, being a standout player for this team of big blokes, and actually like that. It sounds a bit weird when you're talking about team and tournament. That can't be underrated at all. Of how much influence we're going to talk about Japan and their influence on the wider game. That kind of influence on the wider game as well. And I think he also scored key tries in key games. He just no one could stop him.
He offers something a bit different.
Yeah,
as well,
I just think he. Yeah,
I think what shows that too is he was like that Welsh game. The Welsh grew in confidence then that he was out that game, and then they actually thought they were going to win that. And then when Colby comes back to the final on that try against Farrell.
Yeah.
That's when we replaced the Farrell all the way.
Yeah.
He's my winger, Colby.
Yeah, I think Matsushima obviously played great and he was such a big importance to that Japan side, but Colby, I just every time I shut my eyes I see that try against Farrell in the final. Yeah. And he was just superb. That's no disrespect to any of you English people here. But he was superb, and like you say, Jack, he offered something a bit different, didn't he? So Cheslin Colby goes in at 14. Final position now is fullback. Ben, who have you gone for?
Fullback was a tough one, mostly because normally you look at the final for the best fullback, but I don't think Daly stood out particularly. The question over whether he even is a fullback. Villy LaRue, quite honestly, had a little bit of a shocker in the semis and the final.
Yeah.
And I went with Liam Williams. I just thought that he's vital to that Wales team, and not having him in the semi-final showed how important he is to that team. But again, I think it's a tough one, that fullback spot.
Yeah. John, what do you think?
I think Liam Williams is a good shout. I went for Bowden Barrett. I think I agree with you. Wasn't much to choose from really from fullback. I think each main contender in most World Cups didn't have the best of tournaments, but I think Bowden Barrett was the one that stood out.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, like Bowden Barrett hasn't had the most standout tournament, but he hasn't done anything wrong. He's still been absolutely quality.
Yeah.
He's probably one of the best players in the world still.
I think if they go on and beat England, win the final or whatever, even if he's just in that final, then he's in everyone's team of the tournament.
I think I'm really going to side with Liam Williams actually. I mean, I put Barrett down, but again, I don't think we should think about the complacency of they've just done their job, especially Barrett, who should be a standout player. He should be a superstar and should be winning the games for a team. I think actually Williams does do that for Wales. He's very solid. He offers them an attacking threat which they wouldn't actually have without him. Whereas Barrett, he did do okay, but New Zealand did okay, but they've got to perform phenomenally to win. And I think Barrett is almost at the centre of that. And ultimately they didn't get to the final, which is a failure for them.
Yeah, it's crazy to say, isn't it, against such a strong England side, but New Zealand has set that barrier so high. I think when you saw Halfpenny playing instead of Liam Williams, you really saw how important and integral, like you say, Benny is to that Welsh team. So I think for that reason we will go with Liam Williams. Just such a big miss, really. I know Halfpenny brings a bit of a kicking game and a bit more defensive, but from a Welsh point of view, we really did miss him when he wasn't playing. So that rounds up our 15. And should we start with you? Who have you gone for?
Yeah, I've gone for Fiji-Uruguay. I think everyone before that game was thinking Fiji will run away with it. I certainly loaded my fantasy team with Fijian wingers, expecting them to run rampant. They're so powerful, they're so skillful. I just thought they'd run away with it, especially after the Australia match, having run them close. But they rung the changes and Uruguay took it to them, and it was just a game full of flair, strength. It just had everything. And it was such a tight game as well. Not many games were tight at this World Cup, but that was a real standout one for the pool matches for me.
It's the drama of it as well, just made it such an iconic rugby World Cup moment, really. John, you've gone for something different?
Yeah, I've gone for Scotland against Japan. I mean, like a breathless display of attacking rugby from both sides. Japan were a cut above in the first half, just phenomenal. But Scotland, they were brave. They came out fighting. Wouldn't go down without a fight, and combine it with the sort of backdrop of the typhoon, and it was a historic and poignant win for Japan in the end.
Yeah, I think an advert for rugby as well, really, for any non-rugby fans to watch that. It's a very entertaining game. Then Tom and Jack, I know you've gone for England, New Zealand. So Jack, do you want to?
Yeah, I think it's just got to take it because no one has ever dominated the All Blacks in such a convincing way. We've seen teams, recently especially, we've seen teams grind out wins, we've seen teams dominate for certain periods of a game, but to keep the All Blacks completely caged for the full 80 minutes with 2 tries disallowed from England, it's unheard of, unseen, and from now, England and South Africa are probably the only 2 teams who now can really push on and dethrone New Zealand as the biggest force in world rugby, but this certainly showed what England can do and just how fragile New Zealand can be as well.
I think it proved as well. I don't think anyone thought coming into this tournament that anyone would be able to dethrone them. Such a dominant force in world rugby, and I think it's probably quite healthy as well, the fact that they've done that. So it means, like you say, that anyone can beat them. Obviously it's a massive task, and Tom, I know you agree with that as well.
I definitely agree. That was probably England's best game in their history. It should go down as the best game of the tournament.
I think in terms of the overall significance, England, New Zealand does go in. It was such a shocking result. I know Fiji, Uruguay was as well. Scotland, Japan was obviously a great advert for rugby, but England, New Zealand goes down as our Gary's Sport match of the tournament. John, I know you were a really big fan of that England V-shaped response to the haka.
Yeah, I think England's response to the haka is my moment of the tournament. I mean, fines aside, the fine that they've received for crossing their halfway line, and everything like that, fines aside, it was just a huge moment. England received the call to battle from New Zealand and accepted it with delight, really. And I think that, in my opinion, they won the game there and then. They won the mental battle before a ball even being kicked. And it pains me to say because I really don't like Owen Farrell at all. But I think that was just an iconic moment, and it sort of summed up the bravery and the confidence that England played with in that match.
For me the All Black moment was huge, the haka response, but the Varmahina elbow, which was massive, the biggest moment on the pitch I think in the tournament, massive turning point for the Welsh. It's great through to a semi from the fault of a French elbow. I think for me that's a big moment.
I think as well it's easy to forget how close Wales come to not winning that game as well. Like you say, it's so significant and quite iconic, really, that slow-mo shot of him actually elbowing Aaron Wainwright. A more iconic moment though, Ben, you've gone for Khaleesi lifting the trophy.
Yeah, I just think you can't escape the symbolism of it. Number 6, it's exactly the same as Francois Pienaar, Nelson Mandela in 1995. A black captain for South Africa is just so significant. And yeah, for him to lift the trophy, it means so much to South Africa, probably more than most countries, and it just epitomises what a wonderful tournament it was.
Yeah.
Just brilliant.
it's such a good way to end it as well, wasn't it? With the whole, like you say, the symbolism behind it. For that reason, I think we'll go with Sakalisi lifting the Webb Ellis Trophy. Just the pinnacle of world rugby, really, and such a great way to showcase the diversity of the sport as well. So that's our moment of the tournament. Thank you for watching, and check out all our other content online.